Rogersville is a really lovely little town by the looks of it, even a little bit bougie in some way, because it seems like a very historic town, a town with beautiful red brick buildings that have been built for the last few centuries, and there's ties to some of America's forefathers. It's like this little mountain town that you would go to stay in for a weekend, as you trip around various states. Beautiful little restaurants, southern style food or particular style food, gift shops and things that relate to the history of the area. So it's a really lovely little town, and Ben Hill Road's about a 20-30 minute drive east of Rogersville, and Jonesborough, where Don Wells was said to be working on the 15th of June, is south from the home. You head a little way in toward the little river area and then throw south, and it's about a 35-minute drive away from the Ben Hill home. And Rogersville, it's on the Serpent Leyline. I mean, of course, that runs up from the Bermuda Triangle and goes up through Colorado, Idaho, and the Ben Hill property is kind of on this sort of on more of a country road, I guess, sandwiched in between two highways on either side. So it's a little more isolated than, say, some of the little farmlets and things that line the main roads that connect all the townships in that Tennessee area. And it's close to a couple of borders, different states. And a lot of it looks really beautifully kept. It doesn't look hillbilly or anything specifically like that. It just looks like a regular mountain country, historic area. And the towns around it are a little bit more modernly planned and everything, but there is that pocket in Ben Hill Road which is a little more rough. You can see the properties have an unkemptness to them. The land isn't being cleared and worked. There's no signs of little private market gardens and industry of that nature, farming with animals, for example. It's an area where you will still see quite a lot of just scrub, and it's only cleared around the house, and then you've got, hiding amongst the trees and everything, lots of abandoned cars and different types of motor vehicle and, equipment. More like a junkyard feel, really, and it wouldn't necessarily be a bad place to live and grow up as a child, but can you imagine? It's still pretty isolated. You have to make a decision. You have to make an effort if you are going to go anywhere, because you're not living near town where kids can ride their bicycle in and go to the pictures, or go and meet friends and have a burger on their own, or these kids were under 14 years of age. They were 12 and under, weren't they? And they were left alone apparently by all three adults. in New Zealand, I think, I don't know if it's legislation, but it's definitely recommended that children are not allowed to be alone if they are under 14 years of age. So it's isolated. So what to do? You know, you've got regular cool things to do, riding quad bikes and the like, but there's no sort of, if it's all sort of a little bit lacking in routine and meaning. Can you imagine how hard this last year? Look, I look so short and squat, don't I? Because I'm in bulky clothes, and not that I should be worrying about that. What to do when there's no real purpose, because it would have been a really tough year. Indeed, it seems that Don Wells has become violent, if there is fact surrounding his arrest in October 2020. And I believe that you can hear on a phone call that there is some, you know, truth to the allegations that Candus Bly made against Don Wells then. Okay, so you've got a family that's, you know, they're out on their isolated property. They don't have close neighbours. Maybe the social aspect that the children got to enjoy. I mean, the normalcy that the children got, you know, the boys going to school and the boys and summer going to church, you know, those outlets and contacts that they had tiding them over whilst they live reasonably isolated, free range, but nearly unparented life, it might seem, you know. But you can only imagine how their lives deteriorated in the last, you know, year and a half or whatever, since we've, you know, the 15 months since we've been in this worldwide clusterfuck of a situation that we're in, okay? Because they're not working a farm with animals where everybody has routine, rhythm, purpose, positive outcomes, feeling self-sufficient, feeling able to support themselves, feeling positivity, feeling a sense of achievement, having these things in life that they can feel safe and secure in their lives there on this isolated plot of land. They certainly had enough land to have calves, sheep, whatever, you know. They had enough land to plant vegetable gardens, yet for a memorial garden, ostensibly for Rosemary Bly, Candus's missing sister, they just plant a few crappy old flowers into a tub. There's no olive tree planting, something long-lasting, something, a true memorial where you'll always be able to connect with and think of your missing sister. Just a few flowers that are probably going to die, thrown into some pots. So what is the mental state of all people in this family? You know, they're suffering just like everyone is, and maybe they're suffering a lot more than others have, in the meaninglessness and in the fear and in the isolation, without pulling together more strongly as a family and feeling safe and secure and together. Running some animals, growing vegetables, or you know what I mean, because it was such a year of uncertainty. And I mean, we're not going back to a normal people, forget that, right? Okay, but so I can imagine it was just a lot of listlessness and fending for oneself. And you know, if Don and Candus's relationship is really deteriorated and it's turned violent, probably turned violent again, Where are people looking to find solace? I'm not going to cast any allegations around about a relationship between Candus Bly and the 15-year-old boy. However, she's known him since he was 11. Women groom boys just as much as a man may groom a girl. And indeed, Don Wells is 20 years older than Candus. We know she did have 2 children when she met him. Well, are we assuming that they're not Don's children? Because perhaps they were. We don't know. But Don could well have met Candus when she was a minor, if indeed the state where they met deigns a minor to be under 18 years of age. We know that Don has written off, just tried to play down the relationship that Don Wells Jr. had with the young girl. Don Wells Jr. was 19 and the girl was 14. The paperwork shows this. So deteriorating relationships under a lot of stress and pressure and isolation with no support, no one to really talk to. Grandmother's there, but grandmother's damaged. She's missing a daughter, Rosemary Bly, a daughter that Don Wells did know. He can be vague as much as he wants about what events surround that time, as if he wasn't there for it. It must be something that was quite impactful on his life and Candus Bly's lives. How could it not be? And he dismisses it, making some people assume that maybe he wasn't around then, because that's how it kind of seems. But bullshit. Of course he was around. And do we know what happened to Rosemary? Did grandmother find something out? That's just some silly speculation, isn't it? Eye for an eye. He's all for the 10 Commandments. Maybe someone might want to have a look into them and see what they are beyond not committing adultery, not stealing, not killing, honouring thy mother and thy father. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. So why is Don constantly bringing up the commandments in the Gospels according to Don? The commandments of honouring thy mother and father, not stealing, shalt not kill, do not covet thy neighbour's wife or whatever. Do you find this queer? Because I do. And if this relationship has deteriorated to the point where, Candus is just really looking for any solace she can get. If you are in a state of depression and probably nearly, anxiety, psychosis, anything like this, that many of us have suffered throughout the last year and a half. I certainly have gone through gone on quite the journey with my mental health. And I know a lot of people have. So Candus, I can't imagine being exempt for any reason. And if her marriage is strained, and if there's a lot of violence in this marriage, bullying, punishment, gaslighting, all of these things, well, she could take solace. And what if somebody found out about this? Revenge, or, who knows? But there's so much, isn't there? We've got a lot of information coming from Candus Bly and Don Wells. Don doesn't know when they were married. He couldn't remember. We don't know if they are legally married. Maybe they aren't. But they probably are. Don's just vague on things, and he's got his own reasons. It could be a type of dismissiveness. It can be part of his narcissistic personality type, perhaps, because there's some interesting psychology going on there. So dismissing Candus's sister Rose, and that's dissing the grandmother and Candus, isn't it, all at once? And dismissing even when he might have married Candus, who he certainly seems to want to exercise quite a lot of power over, perhaps, if certain things are to be believed. And so we've got the story Candus is telling us through her Facebook and TikTok. She's telling us that she's disconnected from really parenting, that she doesn't really care about the state of the homestead and having structure or anything. She seems very it's self-involved and just distracted and very inappropriate and flirtatious with this boy who she's known for 4 years. She says that I think the story is that she met a 15-year-old boy when he was 11, when his sister, 15-year-old sister, wanted her to lie for her, and she wouldn't. What would Candus be asked to lie about with regards to a 15-year-old girl? No clue. Where did they meet? Did they meet at church, or who knows? But we know that both Don and Candus have troubled histories. Don is trying to tell you that his history, the troubled part of it, is left in the past, but it certainly hasn't, because there is the call from Candus to the police in October the 20th, 2020, reporting him for violence, where she writes that she is frightened of him, where she writes that she's frightened of him on behalf of her children, that he throws things, etc., etc. Hey, but don't worry about that, because it's all fixed now, because red car. Okay, we know about domestic violence, we know about this type of abuse, and we know how cyclical it is, and we know that it is these hills and troughs, and Candus redacts a straight statement, and then a brand new car appears in her driveway. Did she ask for it? Did she know that now she's got a bargaining tool, or did it just turn up as some sort of appeasement? We should be deeply troubled by this. We should be deeply troubled seeing a family that is suffering now, missing their little girl Summer. She's only 5 years old. There's been Summer, 3 older boys, parents that are volatile, living a very isolated life in a very isolating world for the last year. We don't know what they have lived with. And Candus seems to be so distracted and into other things. I don't care if Summer appears to be her subject. This is purely, if it was someone else, it would be someone else. It's exploitative. If Candus didn't have children but had dogs and cats and pet rabbits and llamas, then they would be used in the videos as a tool for Candus to reach out. So you can look at it, yes, you can look at it as, wow, this is exploitative, and this is endangerment, because it's showing a very young, vulnerable child, maybe all of them, as all children are vulnerable. It shows her very rawly, and it's not protecting her at all. It's like an advertisement, isn't it? And I think this is very sad, because children's privacy should be protected. They've got to grow up, hopefully, children of today are growing up into adults that go out into a world that is still kind of their oyster, where they can make their own choices, and they probably don't need 1,000 videos of them made by their mother and posted on TikTok of their lifestyle, their mother's choices, of the children naked in the bath or whatever, you know. What to make of the stables video? So down at the waterfront, at the reserve where there's horse stables, and a local found the area and he filmed it, but did he just plant the black rubbish bag where we see 15-year-old boy bending down to do something? Because we don't see it in Candus Bly's TikTok, the one that we're told is taken on the 15th of June. It may not have been, but it was uploaded that night, strangely at about 6 p.m. Yeah, the timeline needs to be sewn up for everyone for days before and ever since. You know, it is super dodgy, super sketchy. But, you know, so did this person that made the video, he went to the lake and he finds the, you know, the twisted tea cans strewn into the scrub, and then he finds a plastic bag which is positioned exactly where 15-year-old boy would have been bending down in the TikTok, and then he just walks down to the water and looks behind at the filmmaker. This could be their rubbish, but it doesn't stand to reason why it's still there, because the FBI really should have taken that. They should have just taken that as a matter of course, and it's still there. So it could have arrived later, okay? It could have been planted, or it could have just been there from anybody, anytime. Or it was there before, but it's not the boys and Candus's rubbish, all right? What is mind-blowing is that we didn't know, the royal we didn't know that Candus Bly Senior was at the water that day that was filmed. We're told the 15th. So Candus's mother, the grandmother of Summer, and this 15-year-old boy all went swimming together, whilst the 12-year-old and under boys, I think they might be 12, 11 and 9, the 9-year-old that we're told, oh, it's weird that he doesn't act out. By Don, we're told this, although Mother Candus has said that the boys do cry, but that they're happy, but they cry on occasion. It's all very clear. I wonder what emotions these children are allowed. It's so odd, you know. We see the film in the car, in a vehicle. I don't know if it is the red car. It does look like it might be a red car. People are saying it's a truck, but I'm not sure. There's that snippet where it shows Candus driving the car, and her and her mother are talking. The mother's saying, is her arm still up? She maybe had one arm up. They're trying to make out like maybe it's moved. Did it fall down? I don't know. They're trying to get, Candus's mother was trying to get a photo because it was cute, apparently, of Summer in the back of the car, and it looks like Candus can see her in the rear view vision mirror, and she says, no, it's not up anymore. And then we've got that still photo from it of Summer leaning on the white plastic bottles. I think we're told they're milk bottles, because there's this grocery store stop. And then, you know, the boy that was taken home at 2 o'clock. But there is a post, I've seen it. Now, his name does start with H-U-N, and I know a lot of people use Hun. I use Hun as well. I don't know if Candus seems like the type to use Hun as in a shortened term of endearment, honey. But she says, Hun, my mother and I, you know, we were planting flowers. So did they actually take the boy back to the house for a while? This is what we really need to know, don't we? Did they all go back, and then he was dropped off later, leaving grandmother at home? When did they go to the hospital with all of this happening? Apparently grandmother needed to go to the hospital. But, you know, was the boy there when they were planting flowers? When has Don come home? Has he come home and then gone somewhere and come back? And, I want to know. There's so many law enforcement agencies there. Was there a family liaison officer with the family at all times? This is what they'll often do, is say, we're leaving someone with you for support, but, obviously they want to observe and maybe talk with people. I think someone should have been with the family at all times, but they should have had searches on that property every single day. And not to tell them what to do, but I will. They should have gotten warrants, because if anything happens and it goes to court, what if it's all going to fall over any search on the property because they didn't have warrants for searching the property? But I think they should have had a team of 50 there for a week on end, searching every nook and cranny on that messy property. The searchers, the search leader, I can't remember his name, from the Churchill. Don't you find it interesting? Well, conspiracy theorists will. Churchill. And who is the TBI lady? Earhart. Yeah, Earhart, as in Amelia. Anywho, he's saying, look, neighbours, please keep searching your own properties. Don't come out into the wild, into the woods where we are. Leave this up to us. But search your own properties over and over again. Did Don take it that he's going to search property? I mean, if that was the only thing I was allowed to do as a parent of the missing girl, if I wasn't able to go with searches, if I wasn't able to get out and, put flyers up and everything, or whatever you would do, go on TV, or apart from all of that, you would just search your own property over and over again. Did Summer hide in a chili bin and then have a problem? Did she hide in a fridge? Did she go into a crawl space in the house? Did she fall down a hole? You would just not stop searching your own property. I hope the cops have been watching that, but they should have been there watching, but they should have been doing a really thorough search. And yeah, I'm cynical about the huge amount of manpower being brought out. I mean, it wasn't brought out for the Wells, for the West boys, really. There's a lot of corruption around that. Let's not get started on the officer who has been involved with the Wests before when Orrin and Orson were being adopted, and who's now in charge of the Bakersfield investigation that got taken back out of Cal City into Bakersfield and handed over to this officer. It's corruption. It's wrong. You can't have transparency and trust when things aren't done in an upstanding manner. But, doesn't it just feel like, oh, well, end of financial year, let's just pull out all the stops. Let's have hundreds of people. Let's use up all our budget so that we can get more after the end of June. Because if you don't use it all, then you don't need it all and you won't get it again, will you? Anyway, that's very cynical. I'm sure they've brought them out because they have the capability of doing it, and they'll do it for any missing child in the area, and not just because it happened at the end of the financial year. So the areas that they're searching, I would have expected to see through the trees at the lake. How searchers, they throw toilet paper around trees. They have markers and things, right? Where are those markers at the lake? Did you see them when that local went down to the stables? And it looks pretty spot on that video at least was made at the stables, even if that turns out to be smoke and mirrors and it wasn't made on the 15th of June. Down to the tree that is still submerged just off the shore. And that makes me worry. Did Summer get tangled up in the tree? Did she hit her head on something submerged? The boy, when he's splashing water, he's splashing it gently at Summer. Okay. If you look at that film in a certain way, it can look quite menacing. But if you remain open and just see his movements there, I mean, they're pretty innocuous. But what is not innocuous is both Canduses, this boy and Summer, were there. The other boys were not. And we don't know really their movements, and we don't know really Don's movements, and we don't know really when any film was made and where in fact Summer went missing from. We're just told it was from the house, but things just don't make sense when you try and piece a timeline together with her disappearing from the house. It seems like, yeah, it's just bizarre. So, you know, you don't want to come down heavy on what can be absolutely innocent and totally grieving parents and a grandparent. But I can't, you know, it's very hard just to trust that we're getting truth and openness and honesty and the full picture, isn't it, from Candus, her mother, and Don, because the story's changed so much, and there are some very strange things being said, and not everyone's going to cry, and you really could be put on some serious mood stabilizers to manage the stress. But I don't think those things stop you crying or expressing true emotion. And it doesn't stop you making a plea for the return of your 5-year-old child. You know, it is very hard watching a man, Don Wells, talking about his daughter being abducted in the hands of terrorists, her being frightened. Oh, I hope she's got enough schooling in the Lord to get her through it. This is what this arrogant prick says. He's a very strange person. He's a very strange person. It just baffles me, the dynamic, what we're really looking at. I hope we find out what's happened to Summer, and I hope she's returned safe, but it looks like she's not going to be. And I don't think at the moment you can say, well, you know, we can 100% say parents or grandmother doesn't have anything to do with what's happened, don't have anything to do with what's happened to Summer, because there's too much of a web there, you know. There's such a web of that you can't help that it's a web of deception, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I just wanted to get on and have a little chat about it. I was going to talk about a few things to do with Delphi, actually. Delphi and Flora, but, you know, 33 minutes nearly. I think that's quite long enough. My little dog is probably hating me right now. He's like, let's go. We're actually in lockdown, but I've come out so it's super spooky and silent all around. But I really just needed to get dog out for a walk. I needed to get out for a walk. I've been very lazy today and have eaten too much, and I feel like I needed to rest because I've been physically quite sore and I've been quite anxious, but doing nothing is, for me, it's actually super unhealthy most of the time. Anywho, yeah, I just wanted to talk about Summer Wells, a little bit about, you know, what do you think her last year has been like? What do you think the pandemic's been, what do you think the pandemic's been like for Summer and for her brothers, for Don and for Candus, and what sort of pressures have they had sort of added into their life, and has this last year and the pressures and the violence and the, you know, the strangeness of last year, the isolation, I mean, what role has this had in